Welcome back, everyone. This video is going to show you how to cut the fenders on a 98 Jeep Cherokee XJ. I put a 4.5 inch lift on it. It has 33-inch tires and it rubs whenever I turn the wheels. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these fender flares off the side. These are held on by a bracket that's actually bolted to the fender. So they're kind of a tongue and groove. So you just hit the bottom of the fender flare and pull up, and then it'll come right off. Then there's an 8mm bolt under here at the bottom you take out, and then this flare will come right off. Once we remove the fender flare, the brackets that held the flare on, like I said, are bolted to the fender. So there's a 10mm bolt. Use a deep well 10mm socket on the back end. And a lot of times these Jeeps, being an average of 20 years old, they do rust and they can break off, which is not a bad thing because we're not going to be using them. So we're just going to throw them away anyway. And they're right back here behind the fender. There's 7 of them total. And then once you pull those bolts out, those brackets will come off, and then we're just going to take this whole inner fender here, this rubber piece, we're just going to pull it all out, and it's just plastic pop rivets. So we should just be able to rip those out, and we'll throw it away too. We don't need it either. Now that we've got the fender flares and the brackets removed, also the inner fender, the rubber piece, there's a bracket underneath here that it was bolted along with all that. I guess support for the fender, but these fenders are pretty rigid anyway. You could tuck it up in there if you want, but I'm just going to break it off because it's really not needed. And once you get it off, a lot of these, yeah, they will be dirty if you've been out four-wheeling, especially in the rain or any mud. There'll be mud back here. Like, I haven't taken this in off-road in a while, so it's just a little bit dirty. But all in all, it looks pretty clean. Some of the older ones, depends on what part of the country you're in, you may experience some rust underneath there because those flares will trap mud and water, moisture, and that will cause rust. This one doesn't look too bad compared to some that I've seen. So not a big deal, not a big deal. So looks pretty good. And now we're close to the point to start cutting on these. And my preference is, and from what I've seen from others, is this line right here is a really good guide to cut. So I'm going to get a Sharpie, and then I'm going to make a mark so that I can see the line a little better all the way around, all the way down. And then I'm just going to keep that line straight and just keep cutting all the way down to the bottom there. And be careful cutting here. Try to cut at a downward angle some, because the washer fluid reservoir is right here behind the fender. If you look under here, you can see that plastic washer fluid. So if you go too high, you could get that washer fluid tank. So be aware of that. Okay, now I've already drew the Sharpie line along that crease where I want to cut. And I kind of just free-handed it down the edge there. And the key is to try to get that to have a contour that goes straight down, give it the best look as possible. And I'm going to use an angle grinder with a gator blade on here. And some people have different tools. I saw a guy, he used, they call it an auto body saw. That's a pneumatic tool. That'll work as well. Also, I don't have a face shield which I should have. That's why I'm using my welding hood. It's an automatic, it's an electric welding hood, so I can see through it while I do it. But yeah, please take the precautions, because this blade could start to come apart during the process and throw shrapnel up, and it could hit you in the face and could be pretty bad. Okay, now I've already cut down the line that I made with Sharpie. Of course, it was already a body line, but you see some sharp metal edges from the cutting. I'm going to use a 36 grit flap wheel here to smooth that out inside and out here. And sometimes paint will chip whenever you're cutting, but you can use, you know, any kind of paint, just basically something to preserve that bare metal. Doesn't matter what color, especially if you're going to put any aftermarket fender flares on. I'm going to put some small trim on here. I don't want flares that come out that far, but it'll be trimmed out. So I'm going to cover all this in some with some good paint with primer, and then that should preserve it from rusting later on. But I'm going to smooth it all down first, and then I'm going to tape it off, and then paint all of the metal there that's exposed, and then I'll put my trim on later. I don't have the trim with me right now. I'm waiting for it to come in, so that won't be in the video, but we'll do another video, I'm sure, with this Jeep at some point, and then I'll try to point that out if I remember. Well, that completes trimming this front fender. We got it trimmed down. I'm still going to add the paint to it and all that, but that's up to your discretion, the color, what type you use, and all that stuff. This video has gone long enough, so I'm going to make a part 2 for the rear wheel well, and we'll see you then. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and then hit the little bell so it'll give you notifications whenever I make a new video. I appreciate you all watching, and then I'll see you again soon.